Hi, everybody. This is Adam Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology, and you're listening to October's horoscopes. This is for October 2018, and this is Libra's horoscope. So you can always read for your sun sign or your rising sign, and sometimes people even read for their moon sign. I recommend starting with your sun sign, reading for your ascendant as well, and seeing if one seems to match better than the other. There's elaborate reasons that you can look at any of the three that I won't get into now, but if you watch my YouTube channel, some of the past talks that I've done, you'll hear me talking about these kinds of things. So at any rate, the month really gets started on, oops, let's try this. Here we go. All right. Month really gets started on October 2nd, which is when the planet Mercury in your first house and home sign of Libra will square Pluto in the fourth house in Capricorn. This is a really intense dynamic, especially for the mind. Mercury in your first house is bringing the themes of intelligence, mental stimulation and activity, learning, speaking, communicating, writing. Those kinds of energies really strong in your first house in your home sign right now. And then when it gets into a square with Pluto, you're talking about the ability for the mind to be deeply transformed, to look at things from the unconscious that come to the surface. That are whatever's coming up right now, in other words, can bear a very deep message, a message of change and transformation, change of mind, change of thinking, but also the themes of depth in communication, depth in learning and wisdom, all really pronounced the second of the month to start. Plus, Pluto's in the fourth house of home and family. Saturn's been in your fourth house since last December. And so the theme of communication and domestic things like family, home, or property, or a change of mind, thinking about, strategizing about, or learning and growing somehow in relation to ancestral issues, family issues, home issues, relation to property, etc. Sometimes people are studying to be, people are studying like real estate law, or they're studying. They're gonna go into real estate. So they're studying, taking courses, or you might see Mercury square Pluto from the first to fourth about meeting and talking about things that are deep and related to your family of origin or something like that. So those are some things to think about for the second of the month, and from there the month really gets going on the 6th. October 6th, Venus retrograde is taking place. Venus turning retrograde in your second house in the sign of Scorpio, which is going to be about a whole month ahead that has a lot to do with second house topics of money, finances, resources, material values, and big changes happening in those areas of life, perhaps specifically also within relationships, within romantic dynamics, or within a marriage, within partnership. What are you looking for in your relationships in terms of your material values or money or finances? What are you looking for? Do you have it? Do you not have it? How can you make changes to get your values on the same page with somebody else? Whether that has to do with financial organization or spending, or making sure that there's a balance of power and contribution in a relationship. Or you can think about a change of investment strategy, changes around money and material things, buying or selling things, subject of debt. But it's definitely a transit that's all about your material values, resources, and finances for the most part. It can also be about your material choices that you make, what you consume, what you eat, what your lifestyle, what you buy, what you spend. So what you spend money on. October 8th, there's a new moon in your first house, emphasizing this is a really personal month for you. Your home planet, Venus, is turning retrograde in your second house. Big shift of values, reevaluation of your time, your energy, your efforts. Are you getting out what you've put into things? It couldn't be more personal for Libras and Tauruses this month, both Venus-ruled signs, and then a new moon in Venus-ruled home sign of Libra in your first house on October 8th, sort of reiterating what a personal month of transformation it is for you. Maybe some kind of new beginning, new chapter that you're trying to get started on here. Then October 10th, you move into pretty powerful dynamic between Venus retrograde and Mars in your 5th house, while Mercury is also opposing Uranus in your 8th. These are intense. You're thinking about the future right now, and you're looking at how to make long-lasting, substantive changes, especially in relationships or around your material values. And there might be some inspiration that you're receiving, some need to, a mental breakthrough that's about to happen with Mercury, planet of the mind, opposite Uranus, planet of breakthroughs and rebellion. And again, across house 2 and 8, both houses that have a lot to do with our money, our spending, our values, or value differences in relationships, responsibilities and themes of who's carrying the load, and how values in relationships conflict or contribute to an aura of equalness, or are the scales, on the other hand, are they tilted in some way? And those are all questions that come up around house 2 and house 8. And then you're thinking Venus square Mars from the 2nd to 5th. There can be questions in the 5th house about creativity, pleasure, joy, children, pregnancy, and then the 2nd, money, values, etc. So things about, money and spending and budgets and children, money and budget and spending and pregnancy. You can think about also your lifestyle that you're living and how you seek pleasure, fun, or how you creatively express yourself or even sexually express yourself, and thinking about needing to make changes in your life so that if you're doing something that's an unhealthy version of fun, pleasure, joy, or recreation, you got to change it. On the other hand, if you're not doing enough to have fun, if you're too austere, you need to loosen up a little bit more. Maybe something, some new way of seeking creative fulfillment or pleasure in life is part of what you're trying to change right now. It's a very dynamic time, a lot of inventiveness, a lot of rebelliousness, the need to say or speak your mind, sort of sexual creative tension in relationships. Very, very dynamic time. Circle the 10th of October because it's going to be full on. Then October 11th, as if that weren't enough, then the sun in your 1st house, in your home sign, happy birthday season, by the way, is going to be squaring Pluto in your 4th house. So more deep personal transformation, but also related to your roots, your home, family, property, living environment, ancestral karma, etc. And this one can really be very illuminating for you personally if you're willing to be authentic, to get down to the roots of truth, to get down to foundational principles. There's a lot of, you can be that person who provokes change, but does so in a way that's still harmonious, kind, and balanced for others right now as well. So that's October 11th. Now, beyond that, you go to October 19th. And that's when things amp up again. A little later in the month, you're going to see Mercury in Scorpio square Mars in Aquarius from the 2nd to 5th again. Same kinds of conflicts and tensions I just talked about between the 2nd and 5th houses. But again, money, finances, creativity, children, etc., all this kind of stuff. But now Mercury's the mind, and Mars is the god of war. So you're thinking about potentially a very, remember, water sign Scorpio, a very emotional and mentally combative state. If there's arguments that need to be had, it's possible they could get pretty intense, or that the themes of communication and tactfulness in relationships, honesty in relationships, needing to confront things, but how are you doing it? You can be really hard on yourself or others mentally and verbally right now, has potential for verbal violence written all over it. But on the other hand, this is great for developing or honing creative skills, for sharpening or sharpening your spending habits, like getting more organized or strategic with how you spend or how you budget your finances, more organizational insight, but also the potential for some really rash and impulsive mental energy is potentially very combative as well. So you do want to be careful around this time. Okay. And then going to the very last one that I have on the map for this month for you, Libra, is full moon. You'll see the moon's in Aries on this chart, but it's popping into Taurus on the 24th, conjoining Uranus and opposing the Sun and Venus retrograde across the 2nd and 8th house. And then Venus is going to oppose Uranus by the end of the month. Everything that I've talked about in this horoscope so far is going to culminate and come to a head during the full moon, 24th onward through the end of the month. You're going to be really tempted to make big changes, big substantive dynamic changes. Again, the themes of money, relationships, debt, spending, investments, all on the table. Agreements in relationships, who's carrying the load? Is it imbalanced or is it balanced? Conflicts of value in your relationships that may create the feeling or need to separate, to break an agreement or contract. Want to be very careful of being impulsive. The changes that you might feel you need to make, especially like, I want to update my wardrobe, I want to spend money to do this or that or whatever, can get you into some trouble right now if you're being overly impulsive. Remember that the real inner change is what we need. And a lot of times we try to address the inner change we're needing by trying to spend or do things in the external world that we think will make us happy. And it's like a Band-Aid. It doesn't really do anything. So you've got to think about the deep, substantive inner changes that need to be made. And then from there, let any external changes that need to be made happen naturally. But be careful of being super impulsive or sort of reckless in your relationships right now, especially as conflicts of value may really escalate at the end of the month. So that's what I've got for you, Libra. I hope that this was interesting. I'd love to hear your comments on the YouTube feed, especially as the month goes on. Report on what's happening. I'd love to hear from you. And we will see you next month for November's horoscope. All right, take care.